have to be intentional about not being sucked into negativity. I call these people the living dead. These are the people who go to work and they have no passion or enthusiasm for life at all. Or maybe they bite each other with their words, or maybe they're just downright negative. So how many of you have ever worked with somebody like that? Let me know. That the person next to you did not raise their hand, they could be that person. You have to take steps to change your attitude, to put yourself going into a different direction. 3, 2, 1, stop. You just saw an illusion. An illusion is a trick on your brain, and this is what happens many times in life. We get tricked into thinking that situations are bigger than what they really are. And you have to ask yourself a question when you're going through a situation: should I really be getting a bad attitude about this? Should I really be getting stressed about this? Every day you need to be intentional, and you need to be asking yourself, am I acting like a workplace zombie? And if you feel like you're falling into that, then you need CPR. When you go back to work, you will ignite your workplace with enthusiasm and a great attitude.
Well, several years ago, a friend of mine baked a cake that weighed half a ton, literally half a ton. And the reason for that was because she was asked to bake one of the presidential inaugural ball cakes. Well, it took her 3 months to put the blueprints together for that cake. And then on the day of the assembly of the cake, she's in this room, and she said it was pretty nerve-wracking because there was a lot of Secret Servicemen in the room. And the last thing that she needed to do was to center the words President George W. Bush on this cake. And she did that very meticulously by taking every single letter, putting icing on the back, and putting it on the cake just perfectly. Well, while she's doing that, she overhears one of the Secret Servicemen, and this is what he says: "The eagle is on his way." The next thing she knows, he's walking over to her, and he says, "Ma'am, you're going to need to hurry up. The president's going to be coming through very soon." At that moment, she looks down and she notices that she's out of icing. So she turns to her assistant and says, "I'm out of icing." Her assistant turns to her and without even thinking says, "I've got a loaded .22 ready to finish off the president." And before they know it, they are surrounded by Secret Servicemen, and they have guns pointing at them. Well, my short, petite little friend, Donna, she stomps her foot and says, "I'm not trying to kill the president." And then her assistant has her hands over her ears, and she's saying, "The .22 is an icing tip. It's an icing tip." Well, when they figured out what was really said, they all backed off, went back to their post. Well, she did finish off the president. He came through, absolutely loved the cake. So then she goes and changes clothes. She meets her husband down at the ball, and she's shaking. And while she proceeds to tell him what had just transpired, one of those Secret Servicemen walks up to her, puts his hand on her shoulder, and he asked her, "Are you okay? Because I almost shot you." Well, there's a happy ending to this because they ended up becoming lifelong friends to the point that when their daughter got married, he flew in for the wedding. But I can't even begin to imagine the stress that my friend went through when all those guns were being pointed at her. But you know what? Sometimes our stress level goes up just because the day-to-day grind, maybe it's the heavy workload, maybe it's because we're short-staffed, or maybe it's the people that we work with. Oh. But know this, somewhere around the world, somebody is experiencing stress. It starts even when you're on vacation, and can even begin at a very young age. Well, when I was 25 years old, I was working a full-time job and 2 part-time jobs. So needless to say, it was exhausting, it was stressful. And while I was doing that, I was experiencing a lot of colds and sinus infections. So I was bouncing from doctor to doctor to doctor. Finally, one doctor says, "I want to do some special tests on you." So she tested my adrenal glands, and come to find out, they were depleted. Now, your adrenal glands are pretty important because that's where your stress hormone cortisol is. And if you're experiencing stress, you need that cortisol to pump out to help manage that stress. And if it's not there, then what's going to happen is other organs in your body are going to try to compensate. And when that happens, your immune system goes down and you open yourself up for sickness and lots of disease. So I asked the doctor what I thought everybody else would ask. "What kind of drugs are you going to give me for this?" She didn't flinch. She didn't blink an eye. She just shook her finger at me and she said, "I'm not giving you drugs. You need to make some lifestyle changes." And when she said that, I thought, yeah, right, whatever. I did. But when I went out to my car, I was sitting there, I thought, oh, she's right. Ugh. But I did not know what to do. I was clueless. So that began my quest to understand stress. That began my research to learn how to manage stress or even eliminate some of that stress out of your life. So one day I'm reading John Maxwell's book, The 15 Invaluable Laws of Growth. And in that book, he talks about the law of reflection. So I'm going to tell you what that is. Are you ready? The law of reflection. Pause and think. How simple is that? Pause and think. And that's what I needed to do. I needed to take time out in my life and pause and think about every area of my life. Spiritually, socially, mentally, physically, financially, my health, my job, my kids, my marriage, everything. And so I did. And so I made small changes and I made some radical changes, and it was a game changer for me. And to this day, I will stop in the middle of the week and think, do I really need to be doing this and this and this? And a lot of times it's no, no, and no. So right now, look at somebody and say, do you need to pause and think? Go ahead. Well, during the pandemic, which we all know was very, very stressful, my mother, at the age of 80, decided to open up a restaurant. 80 years old. So I said, okay, Mom, I'll come help you. I'll get you started on that first day. And on that first day, it ends up being like the hottest day in Iowa in July. The air conditioner goes out. It's a little deli, and the room is filled with people, and I'm checking somebody out. When all of a sudden, I look over to my mother, and this is what she's doing. I said, Mom, what's the matter? And she says this. I don't remember how to make a club sandwich. That's not real good timing. And I'm thinking, is she having a stroke? Is she having dementia, Alzheimer's? So I walked over to her and I just talked her through it to make this sandwich. And it was a shock to me because she's had restaurants all her life and she's probably made thousands of club sandwiches. So when we were all finished, we were closed, she starts madly cleaning up, putting things away. And I said, whoa, Mom, stop. We need to sit down. In fact, Mom, we need to regroup. Everybody say regroup. We needed to talk about what changes we needed to make for the next day. And so this is what happens many times in life, especially on the job. You go, and maybe you're going through either a season of stress or maybe you're just having a very stressful day. And when that happens, it's so important that you call your team together and you say, hey, it's time to regroup. What does that mean? We need to talk about what's happening. We need to communicate. Or maybe you just need to pull everybody together and encourage everybody to get through those challenges. Now, my mother never had that problem again. It was stress. And when you're under extreme stress, 70%, that's a high number, 70% of your non-dominant brain shuts down. That affects your memory, impulse control, your reasoning, and your learning. So in my keynote or breakout session, give me some chocolate, I'm stressed, I give you loads and loads of strategies on how to manage stress in your life and on your job. Now let me ask you this. Did you know that working with negative people is stressful? Well, the clip that you saw in the beginning, that's actually my most requested keynote. Do you work with the living dead? And in that session, I give you 5 strategies on how to work with negative people. And then I teach you CPR for your attitude if you ever fall into that virus of negativity. So I'm going to close with this. Stress affects productivity on the job. Working with negative people affects stress on the job. And both of those are get impacted. Let's see if I brought it. Oh, goodness gracious. Oh, here it is. It's a good thing. Both of those impact this, the bottom line. So I would love to come to your event and equip your employees on how to work with those negative people or to manage stress. It's fun, it's engaging. My name is Desi. I want to inspire your workplace with enthusiasm and a great attitude. Thank you so much.